Welcome everyone to lesson 11, graphing quadratics in standard form. So in lesson 10, we talked about and found all the key features of a quadratic in standard form, either by being given a graph or given an equation. Today, we are going to take a few of those key features and we're going to use them to actually graph. So today you're still going to be able to identify key features, but you're now going to take those key features and graph the quadratic given in standard form. So we need to recall some key features. Now, if you notice, we're not identifying every key feature that we did in the previous lesson. We don't need all of those to graph. We only need 4 key features to be able to graph the quadratic parabola. So let's remind ourselves of how to find those things. First, we have the standard form of a quadratic, which is y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So the first thing you're going to need to know how to do is to find the axis of symmetry. Remember, we have a formula, x is equal to negative b all over 2a, and this tells us the x of our vertex. Once we find the x of our vertex using this axis of symmetry formula, we are then going to find our vertex. Remember, our vertex is a point xy, and what we do is we plug our axis of symmetry into the original to find the y. So we're going to plug this x into the original to give us our y. Next, for the y-intercepts, we're going to use the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then finally, we need to identify our y-intercept, which is super easy because it's going to be the coordinate point 0, c. And remember, where we get that c from is our standard form of a quadratic. So we just take that last number, that's our y-intercept. So those are the things that we need to be able to graph a quadratic function in standard form. Now, there are 6 steps that we're going to do. Step number 1, identify your a, b, and c. Step 2, find the vertex and plot it. Step 3, find the x-intercepts, also known as roots, and plot those on the graph. Step 4, find the y-intercept and plot it on the graph. Then, step 5, find the reflection of the y-intercept and plot it. And then finally, connect them as a parabola. Now, you need to read the directions carefully because on your homework, they're going to tell you you must plot 5 points, including the roots and the vertex. So as long as you follow these steps, you will get your 5 points that include the roots and the vertex. So let's do our first example. So graph the equation y equals x squared minus 4x plus 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to identify my a, b, and c. So a is 1, b is negative 4, c is 3. And the first thing we're going to do is find our vertex. So we find the axis of symmetry first. So x is equal to negative b over 2a. So 4 over 2 times 1, which is 4 over 2, which is 2. Now we need to find the y, which we're going to plug 2 into our original. So 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 3. And we end up with negative 1. So our vertex is 2 -1. So now I'm going to plot that. And I'm going to label it with a V, so that way we know out of all the points we've plotted, that is our vertex. Now that we've found our vertex, we are going to now find the x-intercepts. And again, we do this using the quadratic formula. So we have 4 plus or minus the square root of -4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3 all over 2 times 1. Then you need to simplify underneath the square root and in the bottom. So 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 all over 2. And then simplify that square root. Square root of 4 is a perfect square, and we get 2. Remember, when you get a perfect square, we need to break it apart to find our points. So that is what we're going to do now. So 4 plus 2 over 2 is equal to 6 over 2, which is 3. But remember, it's a point 3, 0. So I am now going to plot that point 3, 0. But we're not done yet with the quadratic formula. We did the plus. Now we need to do the minus to find our second point. 2 over 2 equal to 1. So our point is 1, 0. So as you can see, 3 points have been put down, 2 to go. Our next step is identifying the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is going to be 0, our c value. Our c is 3. So that is our y-intercept. So 0, 3. So now we have to do the reflection of 0, 3. To do that, we just count how many this y-intercept is away from the axis of symmetry, and then we reflect it over it. So it's 1, 2, so 1, 2. So again, we need to reflect the y-intercept over the axis of symmetry. So that's how we are reflecting it. As you can see, we now have all 5 points plotted. They include the roots, they include the vertex. So now we just connect them in the shape of a U. Our first example is done, and now in the next video, we're going to go over 2 more examples.